right, welcome everybody to Under the Dome podcast. We got black helmets, we got dogs and cats living together. We got Sean trying to pull a Marcus Davenport and cut off an appendage. You know, we got all kinds of stuff going. And Bob can't sleep. What the hell's going on around here?
Mass hysteria.
and Sean's got DoorDash trying to call him all show. So, you know, we got that going on too. So, yeah, a little bit of everything.
We're a popular eating spot, man.
There we go. There we go. You're so popular, they don't even know when you're closed. Welcome again to Under the Dome. I'm your host, Allen Ulrich, here with Bob Rose, who is yawning already. We haven't even started yet, and Sean Williams. How's everybody doing tonight?
I'm doing great.
Bob?
Look, I'm hanging in there. It's a slow time of the football season, so my brain is kind of operating in molasses right now, but we're trucking along.
Good deal. All right. Before we get started, I got a question for you guys. Have you ever heard of the Saints player named Jim Merlo?
I've heard of it, and I can't begin to go anywhere further than that.
All right, so he was a linebacker for the Saints. Bob, do you remember what number he wore?
Oh, Alan, I want to say 51.
Close. 57. It was
Okay.
It's a famous number, so it's 57. This is before Ricky Jackson. He played, I think, 75 or 74 to 1979.
Yeah, Merlo was actually one of the only standouts on that Saints defense during that period. That I remember.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I'm even bringing this up is because my son has become the official trivia guy over there at the Saints Happy Hour podcast. He just sends trivia questions off, and occasionally runs some of them by me and see if I know them. But it was, what Saints player has had the most pick sixes in his Saints career? Do you guys have an idea who that could be?
Darren Sharper immediately comes to mind. Golly, Sammy Knight.
Okay.
But in thinking right off the top of my head, then Merlo would probably be the one, because you brought him up.
Well, Merlo was, Some people saying Calvin saying Darren Sharper. Some people saying, Merlo, Jim Merlo's is number 2. He's got 3 of them for a career.
It's Fetterspiel, isn't it? Fetterspiel?
Fetterspiel, I don't think Fetterspiel does. He was middle linebacker, so it was a little bit harder for him. Merlo played weak side, so
right.
he blitzed him a lot. Hank Stram blitzed him a lot, and so did Dick Nolan. But the answer is Sammy Knight with 4. But Merlo has had 8 interceptions for his career, and 3 of them for touchdowns. And I thought it was funny because, they were all laughing at, how my son got them all, because they didn't get the answer. A lot of people said, like, Darren Sharper, who had 3 in, 2009. Some were saying, maybe they were going through some other names like, Dave Waymer, Tommy Myers, guys like that. You would think that would be, but most of them have either 2 or 3 of them for a career. Tommy Myers had 2, I believe, in one game. I think he had 2 in 1978 versus the Minnesota Vikings. But, Jim Merlo, it's funny though, when they brought him up and they said they didn't know who he was, never heard of him. Huh. Well, the original, I know of one of the pick sixes, because in the original NFL film, 6 Days to Sunday, which turned out to be an NFL Films lost treasure, it was on the 76 Saints. And in that little bit of footage there they show, it starts with the loss against the Falcons, and then the following week they lose to the Packers in Milwaukee, back when the Packers used to play half their games in Milwaukee, the other half over there in Lambeau, to give more people in the area an opportunity to see the Packers play. And in the footage there, Hank Stram's mic'd up. Jim Merlo picks off the Packers quarterback, who I don't remember who it is. I honestly don't know. I think it's not Lynn Dickey. It was number 19. I think that's David
Whitehurst.
It might be David Whitehurst.
How sad is it that I didn't even know that?
Well, there's not that many. I know Bart Starr was the head coach. Let me see something. Packers QB 1976. I know it wasn't Hadel.
No.
Okay, so they got Lynn Dickey listed as a starter, but I know it wasn't Lynn Dickey because it was 19. He was number 19, and John Hadel was 75. And
Dickey wore number 12.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Dickey wore number 12. So let me look at this here. Pull up the whole roster. That's ages. I want jersey numbers. Okay. Can't be Carlos Brown. That's who they got listed as Carlos Brown. I have to go back and look at that footage. Maybe number 17. Maybe it was 17. I don't see a 17 on the team. I have to go back and look at that NFL Films footage thing again. Because I'm almost positive it's not Dickey though that was playing, but I could be wrong. Anyway, in the game, Hank Stram is, being Hank Stram, going more pressure. Oh my God! That little high pitched voice.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "We got to get something. They got to murder us. We got to get something." And sure enough, Merlo picks it off and runs it in for a touchdown. So it was one of his 3 for a career and happened in that game. Hey, John, old St. John Butler in. So I just thought it was funny they didn't know who he was. I'm like, yeah, I watch that footage a lot because it's old New Orleans. They go get they get a sandwich at the Time Saver that used to be across the street from the old Saints facility off of David Drive. And you can see the 2 old incinerator plants in the background. And it's just fun for somebody like me who recognizes, there's an apartment complex that used to be across the street from the Saints facility. That's gone now. And Eisenhower was the name of that street. And, so it's fun to see old New Orleans and the old cars. And you realize how tiny and primitive the football was even in the 70s.
Yeah.
The guy in the locker room, it's like your high school or a playground locker room in there, where the team is getting dressed and stuff. So it's interesting. It really is. So if you get a chance, look up NFL Films Lost Treasure, the original 6 Days to Sunday. It's on YouTube. Another one says 1976, how Hank Stram prepared the Saints for game day.
Mm-hmm.
So
I remember that one.
It's worth watching. Anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up because I thought that was kind of funny. They didn't know, but I know who Jim Merlo was. I know more obscure Saints players now from watching stuff on NFL, on YouTube. Little highlights from This Is the NFL that come on, Pat Summerall and Tom Brookshire used to host that, and that was the only way you saw NFL. That's the only way you saw any kind of footage. So,
yeah, that was pre Inside the NFL, which I grew up on. NFL Weekly or whatever that show was called, it came out every Sunday morning. And like you said, Alan, Pat Summerall and Tom Brookshire hosted it. And then, I think it was a half-hour show, so they buzzed through, every single game real quick. Yeah. But if you were, say, a Saints fan trapped up north in those days, that was literally, other than reading the newspaper, and really, when I say newspaper, other than the USA Today, it was nothing more than a score listing. It was the only way to follow. I grew up a Saints and a Broncos fan. It was the only way to follow those teams. And at least when you got into the early 80s and the Denver Elways started to become more prominent, you'd at least see them on TV. You wouldn't, I wouldn't even be able to see Saints on TV until really the Dome Patrol days. 87, there was a couple, one time a year you'd see them on Monday Night Football.
In the 70s, you didn't even see them. You only saw half the Saints games on
Right.
TV because they weren't sellouts. So, they were only, okay, Sean just disappeared on us. I hear his sound, but he just dropped off on us. But yeah, Saints games weren't sold out, so you listened to him on the radio more than anything else. Calvin posted this little thing. All right, so I was hoping Sean's going to come back. I was hoping Sean would hear this one. If you say Sunday, 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 you cannot read it the way I just read it. The way this used to be done was Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. It was the racetrack, drag racetrack, so I can remember those commercials very well. That's old New Orleans too. Well, that was actually Baton Rouge. They had these racetracks, but yeah, that was a drag strip, and the guy would come on the radio, Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Okay, Sean's back. What'd you do? Unplug the phone?
No, I lost connection, I think. I don't know.
Yeah. Calvin. That's better. Yeah. Yeah, Sean, do you remember that for the Baton Rouge racetrack, how the radio ads and television ads would come on? Yeah. We were talking, my wife had posted something the other day, K&B ice cream. And neither of y'all from New Orleans, you don't know this, but K&B was a local drugstore, and they made their own ice cream. And boy, that stuff, I don't know what the hell they put in there. It was something like opium or cocaine, something that made you want to come back for more because it was great. And people talk about it all the time, how they miss the old K&B ice cream. It was thick, creamy, it was just good stuff. Good stuff. And they actually put real fruit in there. So, like, my favorite was cherry vanilla, that they would chop up real cherries in there, and it wouldn't be like cherry flavor. It'd be like real cherries in your ice cream. So, great stuff. Anyway, but this is what happens when you're in the off season. We're off the rails, and we're only 10 minutes into the show. Tonight, I wanted to talk more. Well, first off, Bob, do you know anything about this tight end they just signed? He was an undrafted free agent from, I think his name is Brandon Dillon. Undrafted free agent who was signed by Minnesota back in 2019. What do you know about this guy, if anything?
Nothing. I know he has one career catch for 6 yards. He spent some time. I think Minnesota released him last year, and the Jets picked him up on their practice squad to end the year. He's seen very little time on offense. He's a special teamer. Very similar to J.P. Holtz, the tight end they picked up formerly of the Bears earlier. Similar to Kale Waring. The kid from San Diego State, formerly with the Houston Texans. Right now, the Saints are just seeing – they're throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. They're trying to find a diamond in the rough. Because, listen, this team is just devoid of talent at tight end. So I don't mind the strategy. See what you can dig up. Sometimes that's how you find future contributors. But folks, don't expect anything from this tight end position as a whole in 2022. I don't care who the names are.
I was going to say Calvin's already beaten me to the punch. If I was on SaintsReport.com, I'm sure they signed him today, Brandon Dillon. He's 6'5", 250. By Sunday, they'll have him in the Saints Hall of Fame. Saturday they got him breaking all of Jimmy Graham's records. It's just that kind of that's how people are. And Gronkowski retired today, which is no big surprise. I expected. No. Actually, I was shocked that he came back. I think he came back only for one last Super Bowl run, but I was surprised to see him stay one more year. I think he just wanted to see if he could do it back to back again. And with them, I guess they're going to rely primarily on Cameron Brate now over there in Tampa. So, it's not just us who is kind of shorthanded on tight ends right now. I think there's just between the emphasis on the tight end position as a pass catcher and just the overall lack of talent if you don't have one that's out there. It just seems like there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be struggling finding a guy.
Yeah, and it really, the draft is not necessarily a place to find an immediate contributor at tight end, because next to Kyle Pitts, last year with Atlanta, and really Pitts is nothing more than a beefed up receiver. You never ever see a tight end, even a first round draft pick at the position, contribute as a rookie. This is a position that still takes a year or two, for a player to really get acclimated. Now, Tampa Bay did draft Cade Otton, a receiving tight end in the third round from the University of Washington. The Huskies have a tradition of producing quality NFL tight ends. But other than that, the Buccaneers are just going to be relying on Cameron Brate, because they also lost to O.J. Howard this offseason. Gronkowski is, if Brady has shaky confidence with his receivers, and by that I mean tight ends as well, by midseason, or going into the stretch run, and assuming Tampa is still going to be in the thick of things, I would expect a call to Gronkowski and for him to come back for a potential playoff run. That's the type of player he is. That's the type of relationship that he has with Brady.
Yeah. Sean, your opinion, do you think, I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but do you think that the Saints will be looking at tight end not only in the final roster cuts, but also as possibly making a trade for somebody?
I don't think it would be outside the realm of possibility. Somehow or another, you're going to have to address the position. Because, as Bob said, there's probably, as is, no key contributor in that tight end room.
No, I mean, you really have, Calvin says if you're going to go pass heavy, Juwan Johnson is going to be your guy. But for the most part, I mean, you're probably looking at, and let's assume Trevor Penning wins the left tackle job, you're probably going to look at Hurst going in to play the third tight end or the jumbo package tight end. I mean, you're just not really. I'm curious to see what Taysom does. I mean, I think he should pass catching tight end as well. I think Taysom probably starts the season on the physically unable to perform list, though, because he's going to still be recovering from that foot surgery. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. Maybe, it just depends. This is what we're going to get into later on. Also, preparation H. I don't get it. Okay, I don't get that one, Matt. I think they're going to primarily, even though they like to do the number 11, the 11 formation, or what do they? I just drew a blank on the term. Not Bronco. What the hell do they call that? Yeah, 11 formation. But it's basically 3 wide receivers, 1 back, and a tight end. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do H back too. So watch. Oh, I got you. Anyway, basically, I think they'll do. I think they're going to use their tight end as an H back a lot. They'll use their tight end. They'll probably use Prentice as tight end as well. I think that's the kind of stuff they're going to end up doing. So, anyway.
Because what we've seen from Pete Carmichael in the past has been that kind of thing with his tight ends. Other than when he had, when you knew what you had with Ben Watson. you knew what type of player you had with Jimmy Graham and Jeremy Shockey.
Mhm.
There are none of any of those three types of players on this roster. Taysom Hill, and we've said it, all three of us have said it time and time again. Taysom Hill is not going to be an inline tight end. He'll be used out of the backfield. He'll be used as a motion tight end, a motion receiver, and out of the slot, and of course out of the Wildcat packages. Outside of that, don't expect anything, and I mean anything, from this group as far as receiving production this year. There's a reason why they got both Jarvis Landry and Chris Olave when they had Michael Thomas coming back. There's and re-signed Trashquan Smith as well.
Well,
Go
Chase Claypool just told everybody he's the third best receiver in the entire league. So, I guess delusion doesn't run only in Saints fandom.
You're right. Yeah, well, the next headline I'm looking for that involves Chase Claypool is that he's going to serve a 3-game suspension for a drug violation. After making that comment.
Absolutely.
Listen, I've written it all off season. It almost has become ingrained in my. As a matter of fact, it's in my phone memory. So when I start typing certain words, the phone will, the spell check will finish the sentence. 19 NFL tight ends had better production than the Saints trio of Troutman, Vanette, and Juwan last year. 19 by themselves. This team will not throw to tight ends. Occasionally a short check down, dump off, because a defense absolutely refuses to cover whoever is lined up at the position. But that's going to be it. The passing attack is going to revolve around the receivers and Alvin Kamara. And I know you were, John, but I took the bait. What can I say?
Well, and here we go. So, Sean, I'm going to ask you. We've been beating up the tight end position for a while. This is very reminiscent of last year when we beat up the receiving core as well. We beat up the receiving core all off season. Mm-hmm. Calvin was writing something every week, every time we were on the show, which we agreed with, and we turned out all to be right. Will tight end be the receiving core, the 2021 receiving core for us this year, and a problem that we will try and watch all season fail miserably?
Quite possibly so, yeah. If Taysom Hill is your best option at tight end, you don't have an option at tight end.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I think that they
But I will add this. I don't think, me personally, I don't think that it's going to be as glaring a weakness as the wide receiver core was last year.
I would agree with that only because the receiving core is much better now.
Yeah.
Oh, great. There's an image I could have done without. The only thing I'm worried about, of course, obviously, is let's just say we have the injuries that ravaged this team last year hit the top three receivers. Then you're really in trouble.
Yep.
The advantage the tight end group has this year is they won't be asked to be big receivers. They're going to be asked to be. I mean, you would think these people would give up. Barbecue's not in that. I'm not. Unless you're smoking weed, and usually I thought it was peanut butter. But unless you're smoking weed, I can't imagine 8:42 at night they're going, "Good God, I gotta have barbecue ribs. I gotta have them now. Where the hell's my brisket?" God, there it goes again. I mean, come on. Unless some woman's pregnant and she wants some, she's got to have, I don't know, pulled pork sandwich now.
Well,
pulled pork sandwich and some coleslaw.
And all three of us have had to deal with a pregnant spouse and those cravings. So I'm not discounting that.
No. Fortunately, My wife wasn't. When she was pregnant. She didn't crave like that kind of heartburn kind of food. She was high maintenance. She craved steak. She craved crab cakes
Ooh,
and mint chocolate chip ice cream. Which, if you talk to my kids, their favorite foods are mint chocolate chip ice cream, crab cakes, and steak. So there's something
interesting.
to it. Yeah, it's something to it, I guess. I don't
Uh,
know.
but yeah, Alan, I agree with you. I think the Saints very the Saints very clearly it made a decision because remember this team passed on several top tier tight ends early in free agency that
Yeah.
turned out to be pretty affordable. Judging by the contracts that they received. Uh, And yeah, as soon as they did that, it was pretty obvious at that point. Look, we're going to spend our offseason resources revamping our receiving core,
Hmm.
and obviously on the defensive side, to plug the holes that were created there, and we're just going to go old school as far as tight ends go. They're going to be used as blockers, extra linemen, and the occasional short yardage receiver, and that's it. And as long as the receivers produce how we expect they will, this offense can and probably will still be successful employing that kind of strategy.
Oh, just to let you know who's calling you, Sean. It's St.
It's
John
Butler.
Butler. Yeah, Butler's calling you. He said he could tear through some barbecue right now.
I can hook you up, brother.
It's gonna be a little drive to New York, though. It's still gonna be warm or not, but it'll be a little drive for your DoorDash. But they should be good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I was really disappointed. I know they're not. These guys are not superstars by any stretch of imagination. They have problems, but I would have been very happy with either OJ Howard or Hayden Hurst
Same.
coming
Those were
over
the guys
here.
I was rooting for too.
Yeah, especially a guy like Hayden Hurst. Um, Nobody really special. You're not here. The big advantage we had was that Jarvis Landry and the Honey Badger both agreed to sign for basically nothing.
Hmm.
Not big contracts that were going to break your free agent money bank. So it's frustrating because you look at Hayden Hurst really didn't get that much money. Jordan
No,
Howard really didn't have a big contract. So knowing that you could have got those, still could have gotten those two guys. Getting a guy, if you had just been able to afford a cheap tight end just as your primary guy, and Trotman and Vinette or Juwan Johnson kind of being your backup players, I think that would have been so much better.
hmm,
Um, it won't because, like I said, I think they're going to be in its posse. That's the 11 formations posse is what they call it.
yeah,
Um, I knew it was. I kept wanting to say Bronco, and I'm like, it's not Bronco, but that's how my mind works. I had to go through the possible thing. It's posse. So I think that they're going to probably use, like I said, an H back or the back coming out of the backfield or the third receiver really to move the chains. It's just
hmm,
not going to be a tight end heavy offense. It's just be nice to have the tight end option, especially in the red zone, and that's
yeah.
what's tough. That's what's tough. Um, there you go. There you go. Um, so anyway, that brings me to what I wanted to talk about in this show tonight. Um, Dennis Allen and this staff. Sean Payton, as we all know, is long gone. He is going to be in the broadcast booth. But Sean Payton has a huge shadow on this team.
Hmm.
So my question to you guys is, how is Dennis Allen, and he kept a lot of Peyton's guys, how is Dennis Allen going to be different from Peyton? And what do you expect to see out of this team that we didn't see with Sean Payton? What kind of identity do you think this team is going to have? Bob, I'll go to you first because I can tell Sean's thinking about this question and I want to hit him with it first.
And I certainly don't envy the job that Dennis Allen has in front of him. I thought the Saints were the most attractive head coaching position open this offseason, but I also thought that it came with the most pressure. And the pressure being the iconic shadow of a huge personality like Sean Payton. I think Dennis Allen is up to the challenge and up to the task because I believe he learned a whole lot from his failed stint as the Raiders coach. And we've seen that through history. I'm not going to rehash the names other than dropping three big ones. Belichick, Shanahan, and Carroll all were extremely successful after failed stints in their first tries as head coaches. I'm not saying Dennis Allen is going to be any of those three, but I love his approach. He's an extremely confident guy. And some of that confidence, you always thought he was a quietly confident guy. He might not be so quiet, judging from some of his interviews and his practice behavior through OTAs and minicamp so far. It's beginning to make me think that maybe Sean Payton was such a big personality that the rest of those coaches just kind of quelled their own, outward confidence. And now DA is going to get a chance to show who he really is. I've always loved how organized Dennis Allen is, and that is where I think he's going to be successful. Just the fact that he is such an organizational freak. He's still a young guy, so he's going to bring a whole lot of energy to the position. A lot of people felt that Sean Payton looked tired at times. Maybe his message was getting a little bit stale in the locker room, and that does happen I don't think it happened necessarily with Payton, but that can happen with coaches. Dennis Allen, while yes, he kept a lot of the same Payton guys, DA has had a chance to put his own personal touch on this team. And we've seen that come out with the way the team drafted and the way the team approached free agency. It was slightly different. It was reminiscent of an early Sean Payton, rather than the latter years. I was watching Allen especially during minicamp. Of course, he's going to be involved on the defensive side. He's a defensive guy, but I really liked how involved he was over on the offensive side. Not to the point where he was intrusive, but he genuinely wants to have a feel on the pulse of every aspect of this football team, which makes sense because that's his livelihood. That's his job on the line here. Whereas Payton just kind of let the defensive guys handle the defense. If you remember, Payton was always rough on his defensive coordinators. They were the men at the head of the firing squad, so to speak. But for the most part, Payton was physically involved with the offense. Dennis Allen has gotten, at least so far, Dennis Allen is getting physically involved with all aspects. That's the difference. That's the main difference I see. And again, it's very, very early, but that's the main difference I saw through minicamp.
I would agree with all that. Sean, what kind of identity do you think this team will have?
Well, the easy answer would be a defensive coach is going to put his defense out front. Mm-hmm. As Bob said, as involved as he's been in every aspect of this team's preparation for this season, though, I wouldn't necessarily expect that to be the case. He's going to prepare these guys to do their jobs, and then whoever steps to the forefront will present themselves.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking this question is when Jim Mora was head coach, that was a defensive-minded team. He was a defensive-minded coach. So his philosophy, and Bum Phillips's too, because Bum started to build his team that way, and Jim just built on that and added his own pieces, but that led to the success. That 81 draft class and the 86 draft class really cemented those successful Saints teams till 1993. So that team was a defensive team where the offense basically played a conservative, short passing game with running the ball, but you win with your defense and your special teams. Sean Payton was just the opposite. Sean Payton was a let's go get him. Let's put the hammer down. In his, you can hear the sound clips. Go get him. Go get him. That's he was attack on offense, and he wanted his defense to attack.
Mm-hmm.
And it was high risk but high reward kind of offense and team. He didn't think twice about running a double reverse to a freaking tight end against Tampa Bay, on fourth down. He didn't care. So my question is, do you think Dennis Allen is going to be that kind of freewheeling attack, offense and defense kind of coach, or is he going to be more of the Jim Moore, hey, I got a defense that can win games 9-0. We're going to play it not close to the vest, but we're going to play a game that I can win with defense, special teams. I don't need to take the deep shots all the time. I get in field goal range. I'm feeling pretty damn good that I can win a 20-17 kind of ball game. Do you think Dennis Allen is going to be that kind of coach? And I'm asking both of y'all. Bob, you can answer it first.
No, I don't. I know that a lot of people were afraid of exactly that, especially older media and older fans that remember the Bum Phillips and Jim Mora days. If Dennis Allen was going to be that way, we'd have seen the Saints sign another running back in free agency. We'd have seen the Saints draft a running back at least before the end of day 2. We wouldn't have seen both Olave and Jarvis Landry added. We wouldn't have seen a gunslinger like Jameis Winston come back. We'd have seen a more maybe going after a Jimmy Garoppolo or a Baker Mayfield, guys that run that sort of attack. Dennis Allen has the utmost confidence in his defense, but I think that confidence is going to allow him to go to Pete Carmichael and say, you know what, Pete, if you want to turn the reins loose, you turn the reins loose, because I have the type of defense that can make up for a couple of mistakes. I have that type of defense that can win a 9-0 game, but I want you to put the pressure on the opposition to try to match you point for point, because with my defense, they're not going to do it. That's the kind of coach I think Dennis Allen is going to be.
I completely agree with that.
That would be Sean Payton definitely rubbing off on him.
No doubt.
So, Sean, now I'm gonna ask the question. It's going to be a similar question, but it's a little bit different. Let's say, for the sake of argument, Jameis is having that, that 30 for 30 kind of season where he is having a game where he throws 3 touchdowns with 3 interceptions in the same game. But Allen feels like my defense can win most of these kind of games, that we can overcome these kind of mistakes. What do you think? How do you think the fans react to that? And I don't mean just Jameis. Let's just say that Kamara's putting the ball on the ground, or Jarvis Landry's putting the ball on the ground. Something like, I don't want to put it all on Jameis, but let's just say this offense is struggling. How do you think the fans would react to the Saints still winning games because they're getting turnovers on defense? They're scoring defensively. They're scoring with special teams, and it's not. And there's a reason why I'm asking this question, and I'm gonna get back to it in a second. But it's not what we saw with Payton in 2011 and 2009 and that kind of stuff. It's a lot more like what we saw in Payton in 2019, 2020, even to an extent 2021, where there's some games where the offense does some stuff, but there's a lot of games where the offense is playing very conservatively. They're running the football. How do you think fans in today's Saints fandom will react to that kind of stuff?
By and large, it's always been my opinion that fans bitch the most when the team loses. When they win, they don't seem to find quite as many things to pick at. So if the Saints are winning, I don't expect there to be too much of a outcry from the fan base. But on the other side of the coin, like you were talking about earlier, the 20-17 games and the 9-0 game. If we have a series of those that go away from us rather than to us, they are going to riot in the streets.
Bob, same question. I can see you're kind of grimacing at some of these answers. How do you think Saints Twitter react to Saints offense not doing that well, but they're winning games defensively and the special teams?
I wasn't necessarily grimacing at the answers because I do agree to a certain extent. I was grimacing at the thought. And I wrote an article about this, I think about 2 weeks back. Whether we like it or not, whether they like it or not, Jameis Winston and Dennis Allen are attached at the hip for at least 1 year, for better or for worse. And that is going to happen in every sense of the word. If the team is winning, but Jameis is throwing interceptions or putting the ball on the ground, just anything like that. If he's anything less than perfect in fans' eyes, there's a large portion that are going to want to crucify him and crucify Dennis Allen for playing him. That's just fact of the matter. It gets a hell of a lot worse. If there's a couple losses sprinkled in there, and it gets exponentially worse if this team is hovering around 500 or really clawing for a playoff berth down the stretch. A lot of these fans.
Well, that's a given. That's a given.
Right. A lot of the younger fans in particular that didn't have to go through the trials and tribulations pre-Drew Brees, or for that matter, even pre-Aaron Brooks. They're going to expect perfect quarterback play. And this is a process, ladies and gentlemen. It is a process.
And it's not perfect for me. It's better than Drew. He's got Jameis. They're expecting Jameis to be better than Drew because Drew's arm was shot. That's why he couldn't do anything. So he's got to complete 70% of his passes, and most of that 70% has to be 65-yard bombs. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, I don't mean to interrupt your train of thought, but this is, to me, I asked this question specifically because this is the curse of fantasy football. I can tell you already, and Madden too, but I can tell you already that I don't even have to look because I haven't played fantasy football. Yes, air yards, absolutely. That bullshit stat there. That kills me. But yeah, the fantasy football aspect. I can't tell you how many times when I've talked about the 72 Dolphins and how such a good team they were, that people are like, well, they didn't blow anybody out. They didn't play anybody with a winning record. Exactly. They got the playoffs. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. But they won. That's the thing. They won, but they didn't win pretty. They didn't win. They didn't go and just dominate people and have teams roll over. And it's the fantasy football, the stat nerds that drive me crazy because they're going to want to pick Jameis Winston as my starting quarterback in fantasy football, and I'm going to get Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, and Jarvis Landry and get all, they're all going to catch 80 to 100 balls. They're all going to get over 1,000 yards receiving, and they're all going to get double-digit touchdowns because Winston's going to throw 50 touchdowns because that's what they want us. To them, that's a good team. That's a good team. They would rather see, in my mind at least, I think, they would rather see a game like in, 2015, maybe 2014, Giants versus the Saints in a dome, where the Saints won 52-49. That's their kind of game. Breeze threw 7 touchdowns, broke Billy Kilmer's record from 1969. which he had tied. Breeze tied that record back in 2009 against the Lions of 6 touchdown passes, but him throwing 7 touchdown passes, because I'll never forget Christmas Day 2020, people were pissed that Taysom Hill got a touchdown.
Yeah.
Instead of Alvin Kamara getting all the touchdowns.
Yeah.
We won the game. We blew them out. But all they talked about was Taysom Hill stole my touchdown. Why? Because they have Alvin Kamara in their fantasy football league. And that's what they wanted. To me, and this is going to piss people off, but I will love it. I will be dancing in Saints Twitter if the Saints won games with, this week Deontay Hardy scored 2 touchdowns on kick returns. That was the leading scorer, and Jameis Winston only threw for 120 yards and a touchdown, and Alvin Kamara just missed the 100-yard mark and didn't score any touchdowns because you had guys like Prentice score a touchdown and you had Trotman score a touchdown. I would enjoy an entire season where no matter what player the Saints fantasy football people played, that's the guy who made their team lose that week. That would be ideal for me. Meanwhile, the Saints are winning 13 games because, and I used to play fantasy football, but my attitude right now is F you fantasy football people. I'm tired of you. I'm tired of your stat watching and your bitching after games because, I want games that defense wins. I want games where we are plus 11 or plus 12 on the turnovers because we're getting pick sixes and things like that. But you can't trust to play the Saints defense every week because against the teams they should romp against defensively, they don't do very much. But against like the Rams and the 49ers and the Bengals, they get like 3 touchdowns out of that. That's what I would enjoy.
But guys, this is how this team is set up to win.
Get Calvin on the show. Yeah, we need to get Calvin on the show.
But this is how this team is set up to win. And that's exactly the way Dennis Allen wants to win. Okay. Jameis can throw for 350 yards.
Absolutely.
Olave, Thomas, Landry, and Kamara can all be at or over 100 yards this week. Next week, when you're going to gear your defense towards Thomas and bracket Olave, and stack the box against Kamara, Jameis throws for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns, but they're both to Jawan Johnson. And we won because our defense shut you down.
That's it.
This team, and this is exactly the way Sean Payton wanted it and built this team in the latter stages of his years there. This team can beat you in every way possible. We need to score a couple touchdowns on special teams and beat you with our field goal kicker. We'll do that. We need to shut down Tom Brady because we only put 9 points on the board. Okay, we can do that. And at least on paper, they have the personnel to win one of those 51-49 games.
That was probably the most enjoyable part about that 9-0 win against the Bucs. You're playing the Bucs at home, first off. And secondly, Tom Brady is always a big play away from getting right back in this game, but he never did it.
Yeah.
And you lost 9-0. That to me, that's the best part the most enjoyable part of that game. The game is boring to watch. I give you that, unless the Saints are on defense. But it's a boring game to watch. The Giants of 1990 was boring football, but they won. You watch that Super Bowl 25, it's a masterpiece of defensive performance, where they're making the plays when they had to make them. It felt like the Bills had the ball all game. They really didn't, but it felt like they could, at any time, they were moving up and down the field, but they couldn't score.
Yeah.
And the Giants would just be so slow and methodical, and they're just milking that clock. and they're getting down the field and they're making the plays that won that game. And it's just, yeah, I do. I think the same too. I think they are. St. John Butler. You're right. You need a Mike Carney versus Dallas game. Yeah, Mike Carney scored 3 touchdowns, and what was it? Jamal Jones scored the other one. You know, the Devery Henderson got one near the end. But I mean, that was, and I think Reggie Bush had one in there too. But I mean, basically, you know, yeah, I love that. But basically, yeah, it was, that game was so fun because, you know, Al Michaels is like, Mike Carney, who is this guy? You know, and he gets the hat trick. So that's fun football because it's miserable as a Saints fan if you're playing fantasy football, but it's fun as a Saints fan that you don't give a damn about fantasy football. You care about real football. And the only other coaches I can think of that were like that, you think about Mike Shanahan with his running backs in Denver. You know, you didn't know if it was going to be Landis Gary. You didn't know if it was going to be Terrell Davis, or I can't think of the third guy that
Mike Anderson.
Mike Anderson. That was the other one. Yeah, the I knew it was a military guy. I just couldn't think of his name. But you didn't know who was going to get the ball. And the same thing with the Patriots running game. Belichick will run White, and you think, okay, he's now the star running back. Nope, today's Sony Michel. We're going to play him this week. Oh, you don't like Sony Michel. We're going to get Gillespie, whatever the hell his name was. You know, you're looking at the waiver wire. Who are these guys? I never heard of them. You know, so you know in your head, okay, don't ever play, no matter what the matchup is, don't ever play a Patriots running back because you're not going to get any points for that.
Yep.
And to me, that's the kind of Saints football I really am looking forward to in 2022. Winning football, but finding different ways to win. Because here's the main reason, you know, a lot of people are going to say, you know, hey, if you play a conservative offense, that's going to get exposed by the time the playoffs roll around. Well, by the time the playoffs come, I just want to get to the playoffs right now, okay?
Yeah.
The playoffs come around, you've already won in so many ways, and that was the thing about the 2009 season. You know, you won those so many games, 13 games, in so many different ways that you felt like someone's going to make that play to get us the game. You know, and that's the Tracy Porter moment. We're going to make a play that's going to win the game. We're going to pick you off. We're going to force a fumble. We're going to sack you for a safety or a strip fumble. Something's going to happen. So I think that's what I'm looking forward to the most. You know, so I guess, Sean, my question for you then is Pete Carmichael. Do you think Pete Carmichael is feeling like Dennis Allen, I've got to make my own identity. I'm going to figure out my own way of calling a game, or is he going to play the, I guess, WWSD? What would Sean do here?
I think he probably is got his mind made up that he wants to create his own identity.
Okay. What kind of identity do you think that would be?
Bob, you answer that one. Let me think about that for a second.
I expect Pete Carmichael to throw the ball a lot, but not necessarily. And you know, cue up the old '70s Raiders theme, Alan. It's not going to be a bombs away attack. Pete is going to want to spread defenses out and take downfield shots. Pete Carmichael is a Sean Payton disciple, but he's not a Sean Payton clone. His goal, and I say this with all love for Sean Payton. Pete Carmichael is not out to show the world how smart he is. Pete Carmichael is just going to use the weapons at his disposal. And remember, yes, Sean Payton and Drew Brees were the czars of this offense, but Carmichael and so many other people were involved in the day-to-day and week-to-week game planning. So, Pete Carmichael is going to be able to put a game plan together. I'm going to be more interested because, he's done it with success, but on a very limited basis. I'm going to be very interested to see what kind of play caller Pete Carmichael is going to be in crunch time. I feel very confident. He's going to be very aggressive with the passing attack, but he's going to mix in a nice run balance because, we've all learned that you're foolish not to do that. But in crunch time, in big situations, when the defenses have shut down your initial game plan, how is Pete Carmichael going to react then?
Well, it's interesting you brought that up because I think that Carmichael is going to throw the ball a lot, but I think he realizes this offense rolls through Alvin Kamara and
Absolutely
not Jameis Winston. That this team will go as far offensively, will go as far as Alvin Kamara goes.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that James Winston has the handcuffs on him. Only that Alvin Kamara is going to be the face of this franchise. And it's going to be all about what Alvin Kamara does in the running and passing game. So that's where he sees Winston. I think he takes the deep shots occasionally when they cross midfield like Sean used to.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for the most part, Winston will be playing a conservative, short passing kind of game.
Control. Very controlled.
That's probably the best way to put it. A control passing game. Brian says he hopes that Pete doesn't outcoach himself like Sean did at times. I think Sean's issue was he felt like there were opportunities and he just wanted to be more aggressive than he probably should have been. And if the players executed the way he expected it to, it would have been a huge play. I just don't think the players could execute it because he put them in a difficult position. I think he did less of that from 2017 on than he did early in his career. And I'm thinking 2006 through 2011, where Sean would call those double reverses and would call those, wild pitch plays and stuff. I think Carmichael, if it's 3rd or 4th and 1 and he wants to go for it, hey, diddle, here comes Hill up the middle. It's going to be one of those kind of things where we all know it, but it's going to be up to the team to execute it, Sean did think he could make a receiver out of anybody, but he had Drew Brees who could make those throws to those kind of receivers. So, I that's an interesting question. That's probably something we could have talked about tonight too. I think the draft is pretty much a Sean Payton draft. I still think they go get the first 2 guys they're looking at, Olave and Penning, because that's what he wanted. But the question would be, do they bring in Jarvis Landry and the Honey Badger? I don't think they do both. I think
Honey Badger probably, given their losses in the secondary, but I don't think Landry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's one of the issues. Yes, I would like to see the flea flicker, and that's a great play to run at midfield.
Mm-hmm.
On first down. I think Pete will out. I just don't think they're gonna turn. I think what you're trying to get at, Brian, is I don't think they're gonna turn Winston loose until well in October and November, if they turn him loose at all. I think they're going to try and minimize Winston's risk. It's going to be that controlled passing game. I mean, Sean, do you agree with that? I mean, I know Bob does, but do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just because you turn Winston loose, Winston's best off of play action. So play action works best when you have a good running game.
Yep.
Because play action, Winston's good at has a good play action fake. It freezes the linebackers and it makes it the defense easier for him to read. I think Winston has proven his time in Tampa. One of his biggest issues has been the defense shows him one thing pre-snap, and then post-snap they jump into another coverage, and he still tries to run that play. That's one of the reasons I don't think he called many plays from the line of scrimmage. Instead, you had the center call the coverages, and they pretty much ran with whatever the plays were that Sean called in. So I think I think Winston's going to have to progress in the season, and he'll eventually start giving him more leash to run more things. But I think it would be foolish in the very beginning to really ruin his confidence, and not that he's not a confident guy already, but to ruin his confidence and turn the fans against him by letting him put the ball at risk so much. I think that's what you want, a confident, and this is going to take some adjustments for Jarvis Landry, Michael Thomas, and Chris Olave to really kind of get into this offense.
Sure.
So, oh man, shots fired.
Hey.
Shots fired. Landry about to be this year's Emmanuel Butler. No. I think
here's the thing too, Brian. There's a big difference between the offense revolving around what Alvin Kamara does, and I'm including as a receiver, and the offense only having Alvin Kamara as the sole weapon. If a defense could shut down Alvin Kamara last year, or I'd even say the year before, this offense went nowhere. Now, if the defense manages to contain Alvin Kamara, then Jameis Winston and Pete Carmichael have Michael Thomas, we presume, Jarvis Landry, and Chris Olave. There's a hell of a lot of difference between this offensive personnel and the personnel from the previous 2 years.
I think to address Brian's question here, I think Sean, and you mentioned this at the beginning of the show, Bob, Sean looked tired last year. And I really think the 2018 failure really, really affected him as a coach.
I do.
And that's what led
2019 too.
2019 as well, because that was supposed to be the revenge tour, and it didn't happen the way it was supposed to. But I think, when he talked about sitting at home eating a tub of ice cream, and that, that's how a fan thinks. And Bill Parcells talked about when the Bears kicked his ass in the 84 playoffs, 85 playoffs, and he's and Mickey, Parcells' mentor, basically said, you got to figure out a way to beat those guys. That kind of snapped him back. I think Payton, between Breeze suddenly showing his age in 2019, getting injured, and then the 2020 season playing the way it did, and he even said in the beginning of 2021, he kept looking at the empty seat where Drew used to sit, and was just like, he's not here. I think all that stuff, and a new wife, can't discount that. I think all that has just kind of worn on him. That's why when a lot of people are like, well, Drew's going to, Sean's going to come back next year and we'll get a first round draft pick and all the other stuff. I would not be surprised if Sean enjoys television and says, you know what, this is what I want to do. I don't want to coach anymore. Not because I don't have Breeze anymore. I think the grind of the season just has worn him out. The grind of the off season.
Yeah, that's more it.
And I agree with you. When I think, yes, there are many ways the Saints can attack a defense, and I think they're going to show up. I just feel like in the beginning it's going to be very conservative, and I could be totally wrong. They may come out and throw 5 touchdown passes just like last year, the first game. But I think in the beginning,
it's the Falcons, so we can
right,
pretty much discount whatever happened. It's week 2 against Tampa Bay that's going to tell the tale.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's not forget that a large determining factor on how you are going to use Winston is going to depend on the impending suspension of Alvin Kamara.
Yep.
This is true. Yeah, and this is why, Donald, before you came on the thing, I was talking about winning games, special teams. Blake Gillikin, if he can pin people like Morstead used to inside the 5 in the proverbial coffin corner, you can pin those guys deep, and you can win games where your offense has to go against our defense 80-something yards. That'll be tough. I think there were a lot of things that went wrong last year, and it really just ate at Sean. And I just feel like if this was year 6 or year 7, it'd been one thing. But being year 16, that's really hard to stay up for those games and to stay up for probably another rebuild. And I just, if he goes back to coaching next year, then maybe it was just he felt like it was time to move on. But honestly, I feel like there are times I feel like he's coming back next year, and there's times where I'm just like, no, he's done. He is emotionally spent. So, and I think if television give him that feeling of being in the season, that'll be where he's going to want to stay. I think the reason why Drew left television is because he enjoyed it, but it wasn't what he didn't really enjoy it like he did as a player.
Yep. He didn't enjoy being in the studio. He wanted to be in the booth.
Yeah. He doesn't have the personality for the booth. That's the problem. That's Drew's problem. Yes. Sean, I think, has the perfect personality for TV. I've said it before. These guys, Drew Brees, Sean Payton, Tom Brady, if that time ever comes, these guys are going to be reaching for the same, just like Alan alluded to, for the same kind of competitive feel that professional football gave to them. And it's a competitive thing. Sean, I think I agree with you guys. If Sean feels like TV gives him that, he still could return to coaching, but he's not going to come back to Sean Payton's not going to come back to coach just to coach. It's going to be the right kind of situation, complete autonomy and control, a young quarterback either in place or where he can get to mold for several seasons. Not just a one and done thing. That's why I don't put much stock in, Tom Brady and, Sean Payton together. I didn't see that. It's going to be a Justin Herbert, with the Chargers, a Dak Prescott, if you believe Dak is a franchise guy. A situation like that would be the only thing that could possibly entice Sean Payton back to the sidelines.
You could discount Sean Payton. Everybody keeps saying that. And I think part of it is because they want Dallas to be relevant again. And they know Sean Payton and Dallas would make Dallas relevant again. I can't see Sean dealing with all those egos, including the owners,
especially the owner.
Yeah. It's just too hard with a team like the Chargers. Yeah. You get Justin Herbert. You've got a good young quarterback. You can do a lot of things. He can do all the things you want to do to be as creative as you want to be. The pressure is not there to win immediately. Not that he wouldn't win, but the expectation isn't Super Bowl or bust. The expectation is you're building a program. You've got to get fans in the stands. All those things. With Dallas, whoever walks in, it's we got to get back to the Super Bowl. Our last Super Bowl, VHS tape was and Blockbuster was still around. I mean, it's just that's. I think, I don't think they can coexist. They can coexist as friends. They can't coexist as employee and owner. No way.
Yep.
It can't happen.
I agree.
Oh yeah, the Monday Night Crew. So that isn't that Buck and Aikman now?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where they went to. I was watching a Saints game the other day on YouTube. I want to say it was in the '94 season, and Joe Buck was there with Bill Moss. That was the team, and Joe Buck was very low key. This is early in his career and stuff like that, and I almost was like, boy, I miss this Joe Buck. He's not. He wasn't the obnoxious ass that he became with Aikman, where he had to talk so much all the time. So here's somebody. Miami Dolphins. I don't think he goes to the Dolphins either. That's another one. I can't see him go to the Dolphins. I can't see him go to the Jets. I can't see him in a lot of teams like that. I could see him in New York with the Giants. I could see him going there if he gets access to a quarterback. I could see him going to, I hate to say it, but the Browns. If let's just throw Deshaun Watson to the curb.
Gladly.
If Watson gets kicked out of football or whatever, and they have to go back to Baker Mayfield, I could see Sean Payton wanting to coach Mayfield and build his team in Cleveland.
Guys, what about Houston? Houston is still Gulf Coast. They have all these draft picks over the next 2 years. So Payton could get his quarterback and a rather novice owner. Where you could go to that ownership and say, look, if you want, I'm Sean Payton. If you want a Sean Payton, I want complete control over your personnel operations.
Yeah, the problem with Houston is this will be if he goes next year, let's just say, that's their third coach in 3 years.
Right.
Houston's really kind of screwed up. And plus, I hate to say it this way, but he's replacing Lovie Smith, an African-American coach.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing right now. You just can't. I don't say you can't do it because that's not accurate, but it would not. The PR would be very bad, because you basically, no matter what Lovie Smith does, you feel like, oh, he was just a sacrificial lamb. He was our token coach, so we don't get in trouble.
That's a lot of the reasons why you're also saying no to Miami. I realize.
Miami as well. I mean, you really have to go to. You have to go to a franchise that's got a non-meddlesome owner, and the expectations are we're going to win, and we're going to go to the Super Bowl eventually, but we're going to let you build your program here like you did in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. We're not expecting you to take this team and turn it around immediately. So that's why I said the Browns is a possibility, only because the Browns are a traditional organization that needs to get. It's been a loser for a long time. The Giants are, that's the NFC East. That's his old home stomping grounds. Mm-hmm. And he has a relationship with that owner too. Dallas is not a good situation as long as Jerry Jones owns the team. The Raiders are a disaster. You don't want to touch them.
Right.
So you kind of run out of teams after a while to choose from. Do you go to Seattle and replace Pete Carroll?
Probably not.
Right. Arizona, that's another possibility. If Kingsbury can't win and he gets kicked out.
Can see that.
You've got some potential there. Arizona's a franchise that, again, you expect to win, but your expectations on Super Bowl bust. You
Mhm.
know, it's that kind of thing. So, Denver would have been a good choice this year. I don't. Now they got a new coach. I don't know how. Well, I mean, I don't know how that's going to work out. You know. Oh, sure, but Andy Reid. If Andy Reid retires, you know, look who you got standing right next to him. You know, again, you're looking at a minority coach who has an opportunity to
Yep.
become the new head coach. So, you know, it's hard. There's a lot of politics too to this. And Lovey's not a bad coach. I don't.
No.
I never did. I was shocked when Tampa fired him. I really was, because Lovey is a little bit stubborn in his cover two philosophy, but he's not a bad coach, and he doesn't make bad decisions with players. It's one of those things that there's a lot of politics involved, and there's a lot of, you're only giving this guy a shot because he was a former coach. When do the new coaches get a shot? When does the new blood get a shot, an opportunity? And that's why if Sean doesn't go back next year, Sean doesn't go back at all. Because
I'd say within 2 years. I'd agree within 2 years.
Yeah, because it's hard because your name becomes less valuable.
Mm-hmm.
You step away from the game too long, and unless you're a Bill Parcells or a Bill Belichick, teams aren't going to give you another shot.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, we went overtime again tonight. Sean, was there anything you wanted to say? Like you wanted to comment on some of the stuff we were talking about?
No, I'm just listening to you guys.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just, when you start talking about Sean Payton and possible landing spots, and you kind of want, I know there's a lot of people who want Sean Payton to go somewhere next year because we can get, draft picks for him because he's still under contract with the Saints.
I don't want him to.
No, me either.
I don't want him to coach again.
I really don't either, just because then that just makes it worse for Dennis Allen in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because if Dennis Allen doesn't get to the playoffs this year and Jameis Winston ends up being a bust and all that sort of stuff, and then you see Sean Payton going over to, let's just say, the Chargers, because that's who is no.
Hell no.
But if Sean Payton goes to the Chargers and the Chargers start winning,
Mm-hmm.
but the Saints are struggling, and they're staying around 500 and they can't find a quarterback and they have all these issues, that is really going to turn fans not only against Sean, but really, it just makes for an unpleasant Saints fan experience. I don't want to go through that. I would rather the Saints win. And if Sean wants to go somewhere, thank you very much for the draft picks. We'll keep building. We'll move forward, and Sean does his thing in the AFC, and we don't have to see him but maybe once every 4 years, and that's it. That would be much better. Last thing tonight, give you another trivia question. What team does the Saints have the longest at home now losing streak against?
I'm assuming historically and not current.
No, it'd be current. It's the longest losing streak. Longest losing streak. A team we haven't beaten in quite a long time at home. We've beaten them in their stadium, but we haven't beaten them at home in a long, long time. What team would that be? Calvin's saying the 49ers.
Well, that's why I asked historically, because if the answer is historically, the longest losing streak historically in franchise history, that's who I'd say, the 49ers.
Yeah.
If you're talking current,
we haven't. I'll give you a hint. We haven't beaten this team at home since 1988.
Baltimore Ravens. Well,
Yeah.
they weren't the Ravens in '88. They were the Browns, but
Yeah, we haven't beaten the Ravens. We've never beaten the Ravens at home.
right.
We've only beaten them in their stadium twice, in 2002 with Jake Delhomme, USL, and when Drew Brees finally beat them. What was it? 2019, 2018? I think it was 2018 in Baltimore.
I know the answer. I'll see if Sean can come up with it. I wasn't cheating. I was just looking at the schedule.
Yeah.
I would say 49ers, right off the top of my head.
Now, we've beaten the 49ers at home more recently. We beat them, actually, believe it or not. We beat them, not the Ditka years, but Hazlitt years. In 2003, I think we beat them at home. It was J.T. O'Sullivan was the quarterback. I can tell you that. Ex-Saint J.T. O'Sullivan.
Yeah, I mean, historically, if you're talking, franchise history, Donald, it is the Cincinnati Bengals. But yeah, if you were talking franchise history, I'd have definitely said the 49ers, just because of those damn Walsh, Seaford, Montana, Rice teams.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're talking current home losing streak, I'll go with the Cincinnati Bengals.
It's the Denver Broncos.
Is that right?
Yeah, Denver Broncos. We have not beaten the Denver Broncos at home since 1988. We did beat the Bengals in 1993. Well, 90. Yeah, end of the 93 season. Last home game. Steve Walsh's last start as a Saint. Beat David Klingler in the Dome. And yes, John Butler, I was there. In fact, I've got the ticket. I can show you the ticket. I was there. It was my father-in-law's ticket. Actually, my wife and I, we weren't even married yet. We were still dating in 93. But, yeah, we were at that game. But, 1988, last time 42 to nothing. We beat John Elway.
I'm aware.
In the Broncos, yes.
I'm aware.
Yeah. But, you look at the next few times we play the Broncos at home. One is the infamous white shoe game.
Will Parks, he was out of bounds.
Yes. But the other games, Aaron Brooks's first start at home because and he put up like 400 yards passing. Here we go. I was at that game. Yeah, I was. Hang on a second here. Let me scoot back. I'm make sure I don't yank this out of the wall.
But that Aaron Brooks story, that was actually a fun game to watch. Mike Anderson rolled through. He set an NFL rookie rushing record against the Saints that day.
Yeah. And then the other one, unfortunately, was I think it was 2004. The next time the Saints played the Broncos, it might have been 2000. No, it can't be 2005. But freaking the Broncos just put a whooping on us. Let me see, what game was that? Let me see, Saints versus Broncos history. I know it was bad. That's all I remember. Yeah, it was 2012. That was a bad one too. 34-14.
That was at Denver.
That was at Denver. You're right. That was at Denver. No, 2004. That's what I'm thinking. 34-13, and I think the Saints didn't get a first down till the second half. In 2004. 2000 was the one you're talking about where Brooks threw for over 400 yards and he rushed for over 100 that year, that game. And they still lost 38-23 because of Mike Anderson. They beat the Broncos in Denver 30-28. That was Torrance Small's big game. We beat Hugh Millen was the quarterback for the Broncos in that one. And then, prior to that, the last time Saints played him was 1988, 42-0. And the interesting thing about that is, where were the Broncos in January of 88?
Right. They were two-time defending AFC champions, too.
Yeah. That was Timmy Smith was they were having nightmares of Timmy Smith still when they played the Saints
Yeah.
because that was the year of Doug Williams and Timmy Smith. And yes, we do owe an ass whooping. I was born in 1996. Oh my God, you're a year younger than my son, Donald.
I had been out of high school for 10 years.
Yeah, my son was born in 1995, so you're a year younger than my son. But yeah, that's always an interesting stat that we haven't beaten the Broncos that long. But the Bengals are the second longest streak. The Bengals are the second longest streak. Anyway, our defense was horrible. But we beat Dallas that year. That was the only thing I enjoyed about the 2012 season. And we shut out Tampa Bay that year. Do y'all remember that?
That is right.
We shut
like
out
41 to nothing, wasn't it?
Something like that. I want to go back and look at that. I know it was Josh Freeman. Yeah, let's see. That was in 2012. We beat them at home 41 to nothing. You're right. 41 to nothing. And they were trying so hard to get that, just get a field goal, get something.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's how bad we just kicked the Bucs' ass. You lost to the worst, historically one of the worst defenses in the history of football, and you got shut out by them. I mean, just disband your franchise. Tom Brady's got it on life support, but disband your franchise. It's just not worth it. Yeah, Josh Freeman was the quarterback, 41 to nothing. Yeah, how do you guys remember this stuff? Some things you remember, just stick in your head. They really do.
Mm-hmm.
The Dallas game in 2012, I remember because Jimmy Graham saved that game because I think it was Marcus Colston had the ball punch out when the Saints were trying to drive for the go-ahead score. And the ball starts rolling towards the goal line, and Jimmy Graham basically out-muscled a Dallas defender to get the ball back, and that was the difference in that game.
In overtime.
Yeah.
I was at that game.
So it's those kind of things stick in your mind. So anyway, all right. Thank you guys for sticking with us. We went on an hour and a half, 90 minutes as always. Yeah, it is called history. But I remember Saints history like most people remember natural disasters or airline crashes.
Same. So, I put them all in the same category.
Right. But thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.